So I have been trying to figure out how to do a sandwich button band in corrugated ribbing. So this was my first effort. I did a 5-stitch and a 3-stitch, and I followed Lucy Neatby's directions for Magic Button. And what I found is that there were funny floats that were visible, and I wasn't entirely happy with the buttonhole. So I started to make some changes and did more swatches. The first thing was to marl the yarn so that there would be no floats, and that was a little better, but it felt too thick. So again, I began to play and kept noticing funny places there would be floats that were in the middle of the buttonhole, which I was not happy with. So I made a swatch and took out the waste yarn and put needles in so I could understand better what the stitches were doing. And you can see here that the near side or the upside normally mounted stitches are fine, but on the other side, or the down under, as Lucy Neatby calls it, the stitches are doing funny things, and that's because they're down under and they're kind of half stitches, and with the floats it makes it confusing. So for each pair that are going to be in the sandwich, you have one pair of normally mounted stitches and one pair and a set of down under stitches. So I started to pay attention to that, did some more swatching, was a little better on one side, on this side here, but there's still a float there. This is getting better. I think I have actually no exposed floats, but then I did a whole series to try to make it reproducible. And by the end, I was getting quite a nice buttonhole without any exposed floats. So I've prepared a swatch here. We'll just get that in the center of the camera and zoom in. And what I'll show you, basically what I did is I did the knit one, purl one all the way across. And then for the row where I was going to insert the waste yarn, I knitted in the waste yarn. So you see these are not purl, these are knit stitches. And then when I knitted on top of it, it's knit, 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 and then back to the knit, purl, knit, purl. I think that was would make it less confusing. So let's turn it over. Again, you don't want to be watching this unless you've actually watched Lucy Neatby's video, because I'm not going to explain the whole thing. I'm just going to show you how I make adjustments for the floats. So here's my yarn in a contrasting color. Now, if I were to go up and follow here, I am catching a float, which is then going to be inside the buttonhole. So I need to come up here and make sure that float is going to end up in the area that will be sandwiched. So there's my first stitch. And then this one here, again, here's the float, and I want to make sure that that's going to be in the sandwich part of the buttonhole, not in the buttonhole itself. And am I thinking of that right? Yes, because this is where the waste yarn will come out. Okay, so I'm going to pull that together. Now I'm going to come back to this side, and I'm going to follow the reverse way of this stitch. And again, making sure that this float is going to be this piece of navy float is going to be in the sandwich area and not in the space that will be open for the buttonhole. Get that right? Okay, so this is my down under side. This is my normal side. So when I come back here and want to follow this, it's very straightforward. I don't have to do anything special for the floats. I pull this together. Now this middle one is the trickiest one, because you would say, well, let me just follow here, or sorry, follow like this. And you'll see here, there's this pesky little red float that is in the wrong place, and it would end up in the middle of your buttonhole. So you need to go under that because we're going to tease it. Then you can do this maneuver to get your where you want to go. And then you have to come back under your float. And as I pull that tight, you can see basically what I did was to nudge that red float to go into the area that will be sandwiched. So next one here. And then on this side, we're going to look for a float. Again, there's the float. And if we follow this here, our float is in the sandwich side, so we'll be fine. Okay, and then we're going to come back here. Again, here's a float, that navy float. So we need to make sure that when we come up on this side, that the float is going to move into the sandwich, not into the buttonhole. Okay. So now coming back, the floats were a problem on the left-hand side here, but the right-hand part of the buttonhole was normal stitches. As we go back, the left-hand side is going to be normal. The right-hand side is where we're going to have to watch for the floats, and you can see 1 float, 2 float, 3 float. So we'll watch out for those. So we go back to this side. And now as we follow this, there, I'm pushing the float out of the way as we're following that that white stitch. It's fine because I'm holding the float out of the way by my thumb. We come back this way. This is the normal stitches. No float should be in the way. So we'll come back. And now here, watch out for this red float because it is, if you don't get it out of the way, it's going to cause problems or it's going to be in the middle. So I've gone under it because I'm going to tease it to the sandwich part of the buttonhole. So I can come in and out here. But I need to make sure that that float is pulled up and out of the way. So we can do that. Now you can see it won't be in the space of the buttonhole. Okay. And coming back here, these are the normal stitches, not the down, or the North American stitches, not the down under stitches. That should be fine. And then we have our last one to do, but we're going to watch out for this navy float and just keep it into the sandwich area and not the buttonhole area. Okay, so now we get to see how we've done. I've split some yarn here. So I will have to get my trusty scissors and I'll just snip that. That should, well, I guess I caught it again. Okey-doke. And then we will get this out from the other side. I've done a fair job of splitting. More splitting. Thank goodness this is waste yarn. Okay, now if we open up, well, I obviously caught something there which I shouldn't have caught. But I have on this side a normal stitch, and no floats in there. And on this side again, a normal stitch, which I snagged, and no floats exposed. Same thing on this side. These are the stitches, stitch, stitch, and stitch, nicely tacked in with no floats exposed. Hope I haven't confused you.